Hey, everybody. I am Steve Alexander, Dr. A. That is Bob Rathbun, the voice of the Atlanta Hawks for Bally Sports. Welcome to the award-winning RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, sponsored by Underdog, Vivid Seats, and Rival Fantasy. Today is Tuesday, October 31st, which is also Halloween. Bob and I are getting ready to do this. Are you ready, Bob?
I am ready, Doctor. It is good to see you, my friend.
All right, Bob, when you and I first met, it was probably about 15 years ago. You sent me an email after something ran in the AJC. And I was thinking about that because the picture they used for that article of me, I was holding my son. He was like a little infant, 6 months, year old. I don't know how old he was, but he was a little kid. And he drove his car to school today, and he's driving himself to the dentist afterwards, which means I don't have to do any of that, but it just shows me how long you and I have been buddies.
Well, it is one of my most fun things about doing this job, meeting great people like you. And I have been a huge fan from day one. Your knowledge and expertise in this is mind-boggling. And I learned so much from you all, and you, Steve, in particular. And the fact that you're an unabashed Hawks fan makes it all the better.
Well, there you go. I switched out the Deion Sanders jersey for Dominique.
Oh, good.
I was all fired up about Deion before the season started, and then everybody else became fired up about Deion. And it's sort of jumped the shark and become almost too much.
Yeah.
But I'm still happy for him. I think he's doing a good job, and he's gonna have success with that program. But it's basketball season, man. We gotta get the Dominique jersey up here.
There are some things, Dr. A, that you can't really mess with, and a Nick jersey is one of them. I mean, that has to take up a special spot on the back row there.
Well, yeah, it's there right now. That's the jersey.
I mean, you can hang Deion stuff and whatever else, but that corner belongs to the Hall of Famer.
Well, this is my official headphones holster when I'm not wearing them.
There it is.
The Dominique shoe. It's always just an arm's length away.
Yeah, okay.
No matter where I go.
You're safe.
All right. So before we get into some Hawks chatter, I'm going to remind everybody to like and subscribe to this podcast. Keep us going. It's a good time. I want to keep doing it. Before we get into James Harden and before we get into the Hawks, you have an off night, right? There's no Hawks basketball tonight. I assume you're not traveling anywhere. Are you fired up to hand out some candy tonight?
I am so fired up. We're going to have the fire going on the front porch because it's going to be cold tonight. And as soon as we're finished here, I am headed to the front yard for leaf duty. And I got to get the yard straight and then make a quick run to get some candy. And off we go. I can't wait because I love seeing the neighbors' kids come by. It's great.
Are you going all in on the candy? Are you going to make it? Are you going full size Snickers? Are you going?
Yeah. We do not chintz on the treats here. I mean, it's this is serious business. When they bring their pillow covers as bags, it's serious, and you got to fill them up.
Okay, what's your address?
Exactly.
Yeah, if anybody can figure out where Bob lives and you want a full size Three Musketeers, I think that's the place to be in that. Because that's the thing. When you take your kids trick or treating, the kids want to find, that house that hands out the full size candy bars and not an apple or
Oh no healthy
raisins.
No, none of that. And we encourage our trick-or-treaters to grab a handful. It's not one per trick-or-treater. Oh yeah, you get the full Monty here.
Well, you're only a kid once, so you gotta. It sounds like I need to come trick or treating at your house tonight.
Yeah,
All right.
the only restrictions I have is if you walk up, in a 76ers jersey, I send the dogs, but everybody else is fine.
Speaking of spooky things and Halloween, Bob, James Harden snuck out of Philadelphia this morning at 2:30, kind of like this Colts snuck out of Baltimore back in the day.
Yep.
Furkan Korkmaz tried to hitch a ride, but both teams didn't think that would be a good idea. So he's going to stay right where he's been trying to get out of for the last 5 years. That's
awesome.
It's one of the funny things on Twitter X this morning is Furkan Korkmaz was trying everything he can do to get involved in that trade, and he just couldn't do it. The other funny thing I saw was, Bob, the old saying, the two happiest days of your life are when you buy a boat and sell a boat. As somebody said, the two happiest days of being an NBA fan is when your team trades for James Harden and they trade him away. So that was fairly entertaining, I thought. But any thoughts? We've got, details are still coming in. You and I were asleep when this was going down. We haven't really had a chance to study this thing. But basically, we've got Westy, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and James Harden all together in the same rowboat. I think the only guy missing is Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, that would really make it a fivesome. It's flashback to OKC, right? Putting the old band back together. You get Russ and Westbrook and Harden together. I don't know, Doc. This is this is not the James Harden of years gone by. This is he's still the ball dominant James Harden, but he's not the James Harden that we remember as MVP and scoring champion, blah, blah, blah. And you got like three guys that are ball dominant on this team. So I don't know. Ty Lue deserves better. He's a fabulous coach. Really good. And to try to make this work on the fly is going to be very, very difficult in my view. Philly is going to be better just because the distraction is gone. People are going to find out Nick Nurse can really coach. And, Covington is a guy that he can utilize. Used to be there, right? He was a Philly guy at one point.
Yep.
And, he's doesn't need the ball, do the dirty work. That Philadelphia may come out. I mean, they're this close away from being 3-0. So,
I think, like you said, getting rid of that distraction.
Yeah, that's
it clears the air, and everybody can take a deep breath, and they don't have to answer questions about James Harden every single day.
Exactly.
And Bob, honestly, I'm just happy that Ed Williams, one of my many bosses, was asleep at 2:30 in the morning, so he didn't make me start filming videos about James Harden at 3 a.m. And try to break that thing down. So, it's going to be an interesting experiment. I doubt it works. There is a part of me, though, that thinks, what if they all play the right way together and figure this out quickly? And it could be almost like an Olympic team experience. I don't know how that would happen, but
they're not all going to play, though, Steve. Kawhi's going to miss his 30, and Paul George will miss his 30 games, and Harden will take off every once in a while. And I don't know how it comes together.
And this actually gives them more of a free pass to take a night off. I mean, I could see Ty Lue just being like, all right, Westy, you're off Tuesday. Paul, right, you're taking Friday off.
Which is exactly what the league doesn't want.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's at least it's over. How about that?
Yeah, that's the best part of all.
Bob, I know you don't play a lot of fantasy sports, but I also don't know anybody who's as dialed into the rest of the league as you are, outside of a certain Atlanta Hawk right now who's got me super excited. We'll talk about him in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Are there any non-Hawk players that you've seen play on TV or in person this year that you've been impressed with or surprised by?
Yeah, well, Jalen Duren in Detroit. Yeah, and this is what I love about fantasy basketball, because you all that are involved in this comb the box scores and look at these results like I do and we do, uh, for the hidden gems and for the guys that are on the rise. And for anybody who plays on the Pistons these days, the national media is sound asleep. Uh, they're not paying attention. They're not watching the games. But I tell you what, Detroit's got some great young talent that's fun to watch, and it's going to be great to watch these guys rise over these years. And I think Duren is one of those guys. You know, sitting next to Neek every night, you get a unique perspective when we play these teams, because he can look at a guy and say, this cat can play a little bit. Let's keep an eye on him, which gives you that perspective that you don't get a lot of different places, right? But Neek can identify him, and that's a kid that Neek took a look at. He's a tremendous rebounder. I mean, my goodness, he could rebound out of his area. Great timing, young legs right now. I really like him, and he's just one of several of these young cats. But I really do have a deep appreciation for what you do and the fantasy players. I just wasn't blowing smoke. I mean, you guys study this and follow this, and it's and I learn a lot about the league just by following.
Awesome. Duren's been incredible. I was looking at the league leaders in blocks, and Duren I think he's at 3 a game. I also noticed that Scotty Barnes of the Toronto Raptors is blocking 3 shots a game right now, which is crazy. He won't be there at the end, but I'm kind of keeping an eye on blocks because I've got a Schurzy bet with a buddy of mine. I've got Wembanyama, and he's got Walker Kessler for who has more blocks this season. So trying to keep an eye on what's going on there.
Happy for Walker Kessler, Noonan, Georgia guy, great family. Kid got a break and took advantage of it, caught fire at Auburn. It really fun to watch.
Did you see this Cam Thomas thing coming out of Brooklyn? I didn't.
Not really. You never know. I always say it's the Fred Carter syndrome. The worst team in the league has to have a leading scorer. You just never know who that guy is going to be. You get rid of all your stars, you start this rebuild, and this guy sort of appears out of nowhere. Seems to be a high volume shooter. I mean, he is getting them up, but no, I did not see that coming.
He's getting them up, but he's doing it at a nice percentage.
Yep.
He had 3 40-point games in a row last year. Like, we saw flashes of this last year. And then this year, everybody was talking about Mikal Bridges nonstop on that team because he had such a phenomenal run when he got to Brooklyn last year. People weren't really talking about Cam Thomas, but then Nick Claxton got hurt and Cameron Johnson got hurt, and Cam's just been out there going crazy. So I'm all about it. I actually drafted him in a couple leagues, and it's kind of fun when that happens. But all right, well, let's get ready to talk about the Hawks. But first, we're going to talk about Underdog Fantasy because it's the #1 platform for NBA best ball and DFS player pick'em contests. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, new Underdog users receive a first-time deposit bonus up to $500 and a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire with promo code RWNBA. That's promo code RWNBA. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app today and use promo code RWNBA to claim your free RotoWire subscription and deposit bonus. Bob, I feel like I've been doing this for a million years. I mean, I was just so smooth. I don't have the raspy vocals of Bob Rathbun, but man, I can read a script.
That was good.
I played some Underdog last night actually, and I needed 2 LeBron 3-pointers, which I got. I needed like 42 combined points, assists, and rebounds from Anthony Davis, which I got. I needed 19 scoring points from Franz Wagner of the Orlando Magic. He had 16 going into the fourth quarter. All I need is a 3-pointer from Franz. I'm good. And he shot 5 of 17 for the game. Never scored another point. And that was a tough underdog defeat. But I still had fun watching it trying to happen.
It's interesting to me how you can put these kind of weird combinations together and get a big payout. I mean, that to me, that is like really interesting.
Had Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, thrown one interception in the entire game on Sunday, I had a $10 investment in a 5-legger, and I would have won like $300.
Wow.
But he didn't. He didn't throw an interception.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's fun being able to do these props where you can just sort of pick and choose. It's like going to the shopping center and just pulling stuff off the shelf.
Right.
Bob,
cool.
Your Atlanta Hawks.
Yes, sir.
Last night, I'm sitting there watching. I've got Luke on one TV. I've got the Hawks on one TV. I've got football on another TV. The Hawks are down 21. Nothing's going right. And I almost turned it to a different game. But I was like, my man is coming on the show tomorrow. I need to stay with him through this difficult time. And then what happened?
Dejounte Murray happened. He had one of the greatest quarters in Hawk history last night. He hit 11 consecutive shots to start the second half. And the interesting part about it to me was that 9 of them were jumpers. You know, you just don't see that. Guys who put together streaks of consecutive field goals made are generally around the basket. You know, you mix in 3 or 4 dunks and blah, blah, blah. That wasn't the case with Murray. He was hitting threes. He was hitting mid-ranges. He was getting to the rack for sure. But to hit 11 in a row, they told us that in the, quote, modern era, which means the play-by-play era, which started late 1990s, this was the best quarter in Hawk history for a player, which is saying something. We've had great guards come through here, and, you know, what Trae's done has been phenomenal of late. But DJ had it going, and it wasn't just his offense. I mean, he was really good on Edwards last night. Played a great game. It was really good stuff.
I was going to ask you about Edwards because I noticed you and Nick talked about it on the broadcast. And you still there?
I am. I'm here.
Okay. All right.
I'm here.
Something got sketchy there.
But
when I was watching the broadcast,
the leaf fell and broke up the
signal.
Fell.
Anthony Edwards was kind of balling out in that game and going off and doing whatever he wanted to do. And suddenly you were like, where did Anthony Edwards go? And I was like, where did Anthony Edwards go? I suspect some of that was Dejounte playing defense.
It was, but they didn't really look for him. My view, I mean, I get so focused on the ball that I don't see what's going on in the other 4 positions. But it just seemed to me like he didn't get the touches in the second half like he did in the first. And he was cooking. I mean, 20-point first half, looked great, shot a high percentage. And of course, he's, you know, if you're not aware, you know, he's an Atlanta kid coming back home to play, and was juiced here last year, had 32 in the game that Minnesota won in this building. And so last night was just more of the same. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. And you knew they were going to cool off. I mean, you're not going to hit 60, 70% of your shots in an NBA game over an extended period of time. So we expected a little drop off, and halftime is usually the time that happens. But what was so interesting last night is that they could not restart the engine. And yes, the Hawks picked it up. Murray got hot, but when Minnesota tried to light the flame again, it just wasn't happening. And then they fell apart. I think the run was, at one point it was 60-20, You probably have it, but it was, I think, even bigger than that. But it was about a 40-point swing.
Yeah, it was crazy.
One of the most incredible runs I've ever seen.
It really was, because the Hawks were down 21 and then they were up 21. Like it all happened so fast, and then Minnesota couldn't even hardly react to it.
Yeah.
All right, so you're talking about trying to find diamonds in the rough and find guys who are going to get hot before they get hot, and one of those guys plays for the Atlanta Hawks. Jalen Johnson looks like a different player to me this season than he looked last season. Like Neek is talking about Jalen Duren passing the eye test. Like that guy can play a little bit. When I see Jalen Johnson on TV right now, I'm like, man, that guy looks good. Like he just looks confident, healthy, super athletic, and he just looks like he wants to go out there and take over.
Well, you nailed it. Confidence, which he had none of. The first couple of years, we send him down to College Park. He starts to get his feet wet. And one thing I think for fans to check out of these young guys is when they do go down to the G League, keep an eye on them. See how they do. Do they score in big numbers? Do they fit in? Do they help the team win? And those that do, a year or two later, you may see them arrive on the NBA scene. And I think Johnson is one of those guys. You know, he did not play a lot in college. He left Duke very early on. He was not ready for the pros his rookie season. He got the seasoning he needed at College Park. He got a little bit of his feet wet last season, but still did not shoot the ball well. But the intensive work that he's done and the Hawks have done and what Quin has done with him since taking over is to infuse that confidence. You can do this. You can play this style. And now you have a 6'9" wing, jumbo size wing that can run. I think is going to develop into a very good outside shooter in time, but he's getting to the rack. These dunks have been amazing. He gives us an athletic player that we just haven't had, that size that can run and do things, block shots and rebound a little bit. He's really coming on. So you identified a gem, and I think he's going to get a ton of minutes. Quin believes in him. He wants him out there. We're kind of stuck in this threesome between Jalen and Hunter and Saddiq Bey. And I think Quin will, at least early, kind of rotate the three based on the matchups. But if Jalen keeps playing the way he's playing, he is not coming out of that lineup.
Well, he did not start in game one. Saddiq Bey did. And then Jalen started after that. He started last night. I don't know how. I don't know. The way he looks right now, I don't think you can take him out. No. And Saddiq Bey looks pretty good off the bench, I think.
Yep.
That might be even a better role for him. And then DeAndre Hunter, who a lot of Hawks fans over the years have lost patience with. And I feel like this is the year for DeAndre Hunter to either turn the corner and be what he thought we thought he was going to be, or Hawks fans are just going to be like, we got to move on from this guy.
I would bet on Hunter. And I'll tell you why. Remember where he played his college basketball?
Virginia, right?
We do not do this at Virginia. And that's no indictment. Tony Bennett's a great coach and a national champion, but they play a system. And Hunter, you remember, he was a red shirt in college, which never happens for an elite player. And then played 2 more years after that, was hurt, came back, got on the national championship squad. He's got a winning pedigree. He's very quiet. Don't let that deceive you. He's a very intense competitor. He's a lot bigger and stronger than you think he is until you see him up close. But here's the thing about the coaching change here. This is another one of the guys, sort of like Jalen, that when you have your shot, let it fly. Quin does not care if you miss 7 in a row. all he cares about is if when that ball comes to you and you're open, you shoot the basketball. And what you're starting to see with Hunter is, oh, it's okay to shoot this? Oh, okay. And I think, unless I miss my bet on this one, Doc, this is going to be another guy who is going to be a consistent three-point shooter. When you look at Hunter's career, in games that he has taken 7 or more threes, and I think it's happened about close to 30 times in his career, his three-point percentage is just right under 40%. That's pretty good. And I think he is going to be, as the weeks go on and he gets more comfortable, he's going to be taking 7, 8, 9 threes a game because he has permission to shoot them. And he's a good outside shooter. And the other thing about the perception of Hunter, I think, is, we moved heaven and earth to get him, basically the number 4 pick in the draft. So with that comes the expectations. And I think he may have suffered from that a little bit. Plus, he's trying to figure out how to play with Trae and, the whole bit about the acclimation of the pros going through coaching changes and what have you. But he's got a guy now who believes in him, wants him to shoot the basketball. And, if you've got him in one of your leagues, hang on to him. I think he's in for a pretty big year.
Nice. And I think he's off to a good start. He's off to a better start than I thought he was going to be. So Good on DeAndre Hunter. The NBA season is here. On behalf of our friends at Vivid Seats, let's get one thing clear. Nothing beats seeing your favorite team crush it on the court to the sound of thousands of screaming fans. Every dunk, dribble, and heart-pounding play of your favorite team live and in person. And because Vivid Seats is the only ticketing company where you can earn rewards on every purchase, you can score amazing deals and unrivaled annual rewards all season long. Plus, with a 100% buyer guarantee, you can be sure your ticket will be as legit as your love for the game. Visit vividseats.com or download the app today and use promo code RotoWire for $20 off your first $200 purchase. That's promo code RotoWire for $20 off your first $200 ticket purchase. Download the app. Visit vividseats.com. Vivid Seats. Experience it live. Bob, you said something earlier that I was going to comment on. I forgot to do it. I'm going to do it now. You said sitting next to Dominique is a unique experience. And when Dominique launched his Brooks line of shoes, they were called the Dominique Uniques. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I did not.
I bought a pair of those in the store, and I've got ads that still say unique for those Brooks shoes, but his Brooks were called Uniques, which I thought was funny when you said
very nice.
What's going on with Trae Young? Do we love Trae Young? Are Hawks fans huge Trae Young fans? Do we not know about Trae Young? How likable of a guy is he? Where are we with Trae?
I think it's another situation where you have a player trying to adapt to a new coach and a new system. This is a work in progress. Okay. Trae, in my opinion, was a guy who played one way his whole life. From the time he was a kid growing up in Norman, Oklahoma, high school, AAU, that 1 year at Oklahoma, early on in his Hawks career, he played one way. Ball dominant, do everything, the passing, the scoring, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't have to do that now. He does not. He has a better team around him. And Quin recognizes that. And Quin is trying to find that balance for Trae, from leading the offense to shooting to passing, the whole 9 yards, to get him to play defense, all of those things. And it's sort of a work in progress. And I'll be honest with you, for somebody who watches this every night, this team, it's fascinating to watch. Quin Snyder is one of the most unique coaches I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Now, I've known Quin since he was a junior at Duke. when I was doing his games on the ACC package. So we've known each other a long time, and he's so smart. You know, you look at his educational background. Both of his parents were teachers. His dad was a coach. He is a thinker, man. He's got it figured out. And I think the greatest thing for Quin is his communication skills. And this is something that he's been charged with doing to make it work with Trae and Dejounte. But Trae in particular is to listen, Trae, this is your third coach. You were working on your second, 2.5 general managers. It's time. You're getting paid. You got your max contract. Now, how can we funnel all this into winning and leading? And this is what Quin has been charged to do. The constant, and I mean constant communication between coach and player, film, interaction with his teammates, practice court, in the locker room. What you'll see, I believe, is the growth, sort of the rewiring of Trae's brain, if you will, to good shot, bad shot, to extra pass, don't make the pass, play off the ball. And this is all a work in progress. We're only 4 games into this thing. And breaking some old habits, developing new habits. And I think, Trae is an amazingly talented kid. To do what he's done in this league at his size is unbelievable. He's led this league in total assists for 2 straight years. You just don't do that if you can't really play the game. And he's so special as a passer. But I think Hawks fans like him. I think Hawks fans get frustrated with him, but I think they like him. And I think they're going to like what they see. Let's come back and chat later in the season, and we'll see if Trae becomes that all-around guy that I think he will. If we win and he continues, was he second in the league this morning in assists still?
Yep.
He was going into last night. He'll be back on the All-Star team, and Murray may be with him.
The same guy that we have the block bet with, we had an assist bet, and I got the first pick, and the first thing that came out of my mouth was Trae, and my buddy took Tyrese Halliburton, and I think my buddy's going to win because Halliburton's 1 and Trae's 2 in assists right now, or at least that was
total
as of last night. I think we're doing average per game.
Average, okay. Well,
yeah,
we haven't shot the ball well. Wait till we start shooting the ball well. Trae's assist total will go up.
It sounds like you feel like I think an important part of this, and I didn't even have it down to talk to you about, but you already talked about Quin a little bit, but the fact that Quin is really just now taking over this team. Like last year was a warm up, just getting his feet wet in Atlanta. Yeah. Like this is totally different. Now it's his team.
Yeah.
Now it's his system. So it is probably going to take time for everybody to get on the same page. Yeah. So
my first year with the Hawks was 96, 97. And we started 0-2 and won 56 games. And I remember Lenny Wilkins, who was our coach then, telling me, my first year in the NBA full time, and I got Lenny. Are you kidding me? 10-time Hall of Famer. I remember him saying to me, don't judge anything or anybody until we've played 20 games. He said, you'll go through enough home, road, back-to-back, good opponents, bad opponents. You'll see enough in those first 20 games that you'll have a pretty good handle on your team. And I would say that to all fans, whether you play fantasy or you're just an NBA fan, withhold judgment until 20 games and then see where you are. Everybody is now like the Celtics. Everybody thinks, oh my God, the Celtics. Just wait. Porzingis will get hurt. They have no bench. These things play out. They have been the last how long? 10 years? A very good regular season team. But I don't see that next banner hanging. So it's a long season, but I would withhold judgment.
That's good advice. 20 games. Fantasy managers should probably take that advice sometimes because we live in a Twitter world now. It's like, what have you done for me like last night? And if last night didn't go well, you're looking for something else the next day. So it's hard, especially for non-patient people, to be patient in this world. But one more Hawks note, and then we'll look at a couple of tonight's games, and then let you get to your Halloween chores.
Yes.
Clint Capela and Onyeka Okongwu coexisting. At some point, Okongwu is going to take over. When is that going to happen? And is it happening right now, or is Clint still firmly entrenched in the future? Where?
I think yes to most of that. Yes, Onyeka will be the big man of the future. Yes, Capela is entrenched. I think what you're seeing is another aspect of the coaching change. Was there a more dominant, I shouldn't say dominant, was there a more frequent pick and roll team than Atlanta last year? Right? We probably ran more pick and rolls than anybody.
Yeah.
If not number one, close. And most of them were Capela and Trae, a 1-5 pick and roll. And one thing that Quin wanted to get away from was our complete, utter reliance on a pick and roll to start every offensive possession in the half court. And you're seeing Trae play off the ball. You're seeing read and react. You're seeing a lot more passing and movement. Well, the one guy that affects is going to be Clint Capela, right? He's not probably going to get as many touches as he has in the past. So when it comes to his numbers, they probably will be down just a little bit. But he's still a fantastic rebounder. He anchors the back line of that defense. He blocks shots. His ability to keep the ball alive on the offensive glass is really a unique skill that he has. So, if you're asking from a fantasy perspective, I think his numbers might go down just a hair. But if you're asking from the basketball and the winning side, then he's just as big a piece as ever, but it's a different shift. It's a different focus now by Quin trying to implement more of his scheme. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really doesn't, to me, speak to a decline of Clint Capela. I mean, he's 29 years old. He's still in his prime. But what it does suggest is a little different shift in emphasis. The unique thing about the Hawks is none of our fives really shoot the ball. Clint's, you take him out of the restricted area and we're in trouble. Onyeka developing a three-point shot, but not there yet by any means. And Bruno, is only going to be out there in blowouts or if somebody gets hurt. So unlike many NBA teams, our fives don't shoot threes.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to figure out a way to get them involved and keep them involved without running pick and roll every time down the floor. So that's one of the things I think that's happening in that center spot.
I also think getting rid of that pick and roll every time scenario takes away some of the predictability and it changes things up.
But it allows for Johnson, Hunter, and these guys to get going, which is you're seeing now in the first 4 games.
LeBron versus Jordan, Magic versus Bird, Barkley versus McHale. Basketball is synonymous with legendary player rivalries. They make the game more fun and give fans the storylines that raise the stakes every time those players meet on the court or come up in conversation. Now, every player matchup and head-to-head debate can be settled on Rival Fantasy. This NBA season, you can play challenges where you decide which NBA player will score more fantasy points in their next game. Play the Rival Fantasy in-house challenges or create your own and get a friend in the mix with customizable social challenges. Sign up at joinrival.com/RotoWire now and get a $200 deposit match. Get in on this now before the 2023-24 season gets any further along. Let's say that. It's time to step up the challenge on Rival Fantasy. See you in the arena.
You are Mr. Voiceover.
Well, I'll tell you, Bobby, I'm not going to lie. It said before the season tips off, you see me adjust that on the fly there and just go right into the
mark of a true pro right there.
Any further. Okay, so we're almost done. I think we've hit the Hawks pretty hard. We've hit the Harden trade. Let's look at tonight's games. There's only 3 games tonight. You're going to be handing out candy. You're going to have to set the DVR.
Who we got tonight?
One of those games is Victor Wembanyama and his Spurs against the Suns. Have you had a chance to sit down and watch Wembanyama play yet?
I have seen one half, but I've seen a lot of the cut-ups. I'm going to tell you who he is. But remember now, the game is played differently than it was back then. But this guy reminds me of Ralph Sampson. If Ralph had been allowed to do what Victor is allowed to do today, you would have seen it 40 years ago with Ralph Sampson. What was Ralph? 7'2", 7'3"?
I thought he was
7'4".
4.
Okay.
Maybe 7'2". I don't know.
But well over 7 feet. Could shoot it from the outside, could put it on the floor, could block shots. I mean, but the game wasn't played like this. Ralph Sampson, ladies and gentlemen, was the 3-time Naismith College Player of the Year at Virginia. That's only happened one other time in history. Bill Walton. He comes to the pros. He's the Rookie of the Year with Houston. The second year in the pros, he's the MVP of the All-Star game. His third year in the pros, he takes Houston, upsets the Lakers, and goes to the NBA final. Then he falls, hits his back, the injuries start to take over, and Ralph's career went like that. But coming up, when he was a kid, Harrisonburg, Virginia, going to UVA, that's what he was when you see Victor Wembanyama.
My Ralph Sampson history is kind of extensive because I saw him play in Market Square Arena in a Sweet 16, I think, a regional in like 80. I don't know what year that would have been, 83 maybe.
Yeah,
my buddy
year maybe.
Paul Petrata, Herb Petrata's dad, took me and Paul to see that. I don't even think I knew what I was watching, but I knew that he was taller than everybody else and he was a freak. And then didn't the Pacers lose a coin toss and get Steve Stepanovich with the second pick?
Yeah.
And Ralph went to Houston first.
Yep.
And if that stupid coin would have landed heads instead of tails, Ralph would have been a Pacer through my whole childhood, which that would have been cool.
Yep.
And then Ralph Sampson was the first player I ever noticed when I was at a Pacer game that threw his wristband into the crowd or gave his wristband to a kid, which sparked my mind to like, oh my Lord, I need to get a wristband from a guy like Ralph Sampson. And that started my whole obsession with NBA basketball memorabilia and meeting players and all that stuff. So I love the comparison. And I love Ralph Sampson.
Don't you think?
Yeah, it's a good comparison. And like you're talking about, it's a totally different game back there. They're not going to let a guy as tall as Ralph Sampson stand out there and shoot threes.
Right.
Well, they may not have even had a 3-point line back then.
Yeah, that was right about the time it was coming in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was right around.
They tried that short line, then moved it back. But anyway, I mean, you talk about the three. Just a quick aside, they talk about 3-point shooting. If it had been a thing back then, like it is now, Larry Bird would have set every 3-point record out there. You imagine with his range? Are you kidding me? But it wasn't a thing.
Steph Curry takes as many 3-pointers in a month as Larry Bird took in an entire season.
Right. And that's taking nothing away from Steph or Clay or any of those guys.
No, but Larry, you look at Larry, he's only shooting like 2 a game.
Right.
It's wild because you think of him as like a 3-point champion in the contest and, always hitting threes, but he hardly ever shot.
Right.
So anyway, Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs are going to get blown out by the Suns tonight. Do you think the Suns are the best team in the West, or you think it's Denver?
I do not. I think the Denver Nuggets are the best team. Again, the depth, which is, a big thing in the regular season, not so much in the playoffs, but still you got to have somebody. I'm I want to see a little bit more out of Phoenix. 20 games. Remember.
Yeah.
But I love Denver. I think this cat, Jokic, come on. I mean, he's not even in shape. And he's funny. He's so funny.
He's so cool. He just
He
doesn't
is the
care.
coolest. He is. And he said, what's Wembanyama got to do? He's got to get fatter.
Yeah.
I love him. I don't know how anybody who loves this game would not do whatever they could do to go watch him play in person. As he goes around the NBA and he's close to you, just go. And he's going to play. There's no load management with this guy. No. He's going to play, and it is spectacular to watch him. He sees a different game than most of us.
The other two games tonight are the Knicks and the Cavs, and the Magic at the shorthanded Clippers. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'm going to pivot something I did not write down to talk about, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on it. We have an in-season tournament starting where a bunch of teams are going to play like Fridays and Tuesdays. Every game on the schedule is part of the tournament. Gives an added edge to each one of those games. I think it could create some extra activity. How do you feel about the in-season tournament? Are you a fan? Are you excited? Are you like, this is different and I don't know?
Yeah, I am excited to see it work. If it doesn't work, then no. But I think if it does catch fire, sort of like the play-in, there was a lot of misgivings about the play-in tournament. And now I think because was it the first year we had Lakers Warriors in the play-in? Is that right?
I don't know.
But we had Lakers Warriors in a play-in.
Yes, I believe we did.
And that, of course, captured everybody's imagination and sort of gave us a lift for what the play-in could be. That I think now is here to stay. And it gives the better clubs a challenge to get in that top six, which is good. But I'm interested to see how the in-season tournament works. I'm really interested to see what it's going to do to the schedule. We've played with these 30 teams, 15 and 15, sort of a balanced schedule. Okay. You're going to play everybody in the West. For us in the East, you're going to play everybody in the West twice, home and away. And then in the East, you play everybody 4 times, 2 and 2, except for 4 teams. 2 teams you'll play once at home and twice on the road. And the other 2 you'll play twice at home and once on the road. And it's been that way for years. But not so this year. If you'll notice, when we get to the first week in December, there are no games scheduled. Well, that's because these teams that make the in-season tournament are going to play quarterfinals. The 22 teams that don't make it are going to have games rescheduled. And that's how we're going to get to 81 and 82. And the championship game of the in-season tournament will be an 83rd game that will not count in the regular season standings. But what's going to happen is the league is going to take a look at this inventory of games. Is the last night, the 28th of November, the last night of the in-season tournament? That night, they've got to sit down. They got to sit down and figure out, okay, who's playing? Where are they playing? How are we going to make this work? If you don't make it, you get 1 home game and 1 road game. To be determined. And they may say to the Hawks, say we don't make it. And they say, well, sorry guys, but to make this thing work, you got to go to Portland. Really? Your home game is going to be against, throw it out there, New York. So the Knicks are going to come 3 times to Atlanta? That's kind of crazy. And the reason I bring this up is because when we get to the end of the year and we start figuring out tiebreakers for who's going to make the top 6, who's going to make the play-in tournament, who's going to get in, get out, this is going to throw an entirely another wrinkle into this. But for the tournament itself, give it a shot. They want people watching. The return so far of the stars to playing regularly has been a bonanza for the league ratings. Generally, what's the old line? The season doesn't start till Christmas, right? That's what you've heard. Well, they want to change that. And this is a part of that change. Get the stars on the court, forget this stupid load management, and get your guys out there and have this tournament to spark interest in the middle of football season.
I'm really glad I asked you about the tournament because in the past, at my old gig that ended a year ago, I was the schedule guy. I was in charge of the schedule grid. I wrote all the schedule breakdown columns. I was more dialed into the NBA schedule than most human beings should be, probably. But now that has changed and it's not my specialty anymore, I really haven't paid any attention to the schedule. And I didn't realize that there was a whole week in December that we don't know the NBA schedule yet. So
that's right.
Not only is that a huge impact to actual NBA teams, especially if they say, hey, you get to play this really good team at home and you also get to fly to the West Coast. So congratulations. It also is going to impact fantasy a lot because guys, some of your guys are going to get extra games that you don't know are coming that week. So
check your league for that 83rd game, because the two teams that play it in Vegas for the in-season championship, that will be an 83rd game that will not count in the standings. Will the stats count, in your league?
Yeah, I don't know.
So you might want to ask whether or not because those teams, there's only two teams that'll affect, but still it'll be some players that you may have on one of your teams.
Yeah, and if the Nets happen to be in that tournament, that means an 83rd game for Mikal Bridges once again, because we know he's not sitting out.
Funny story, last year, he gets traded. He hadn't missed a game since junior high school.
Yep.
And he is a nervous wreck because the trade hasn't been finalized and he cannot suit up for Brooklyn. And he is in agony because he thinks his streak is going to end. But then the league called and said, listen, because of the way the schedules are, you're going to end up playing 82 games. I think he ended up maybe playing 83.
He played 83, yeah.
Yeah. You're going to end up playing 83. Your streak is intact, even though you're sitting this game out. And he was like, oh, thank God. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Mikal Bridges cares. Like, he cares about that streak, and he does not ever want to miss a game. And if every NBA player had that mentality, we would have never heard of load management.
And I tell you, it's changing because of guys like Bridges, because of guys like Anthony Edwards. They went to that sham of an all-star game last year, and Anthony Edwards said, I'm not participating in this. I'm not playing this. Get somebody else. This is a joke and a travesty. And so what'd the league do?
They're going old school.
They scrapped all that crap, picking the players and all that nonsense. East, West, let's go. Now, the pendulum is swinging back. The pendulum is swinging back.
All right. They're going to yell at me if I don't wrap this up. So, Bob.
And I go yell at you. You're the man.
Oh, I get yelled at. I've been married for 30 years. I get yelled at every day. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, sir.
I always learn a lot when you're here, and you're the best. My favorite play-by-play guy in the league. So.
I feel the same way about you.
I'm Dr. A. That's Bob Rathbun. Go find his house. Get a full-size Snickers bar tonight.
Come on by.
Go find him. And don't wear a Joel Embiid jersey, or you may get dog bit.
Yep. We got lots of dogs here. So no foreign jerseys.
I will see you all on Thursday with Rick Kamla right back here at 11 o'clock in the morning. Bob, have a great Halloween, buddy.
You got it. And thanks to all the fans. We love you guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.